Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
They left, but the pain stayed. You moved on, but did you really heal? And when they come back after breaking you, will you be ready? They left you broken, shattered in places no one could see. You kept going, maybe even stopped talking about it, but the memory hasn't faded. Deep down, you still remember that moment, the exact second they walked away. The moment they chose to break what you once believed was solid, unshakable. It didn't have to be loud. Sometimes the most painful goodbyes are the quietest. Sometimes it's just a slow fade. One day they were simply gone. And in their leaving, they didn't just take their presence. They took pieces of you. The part of you that believed in forever. The part of you that loved with an open heart. The version of you that trusted without hesitation. What was left behind was a quiet, almost unbearable silence. You found yourself staring at your own reflection, asking questions you didn't dare speak aloud. Was it something you did? Were you too much? Or maybe not enough? It's in these low moments that the enemy whispers lies. And let's be honest, sometimes we listen. Because when someone you gave everything to leaves you broken, the pain doesn't just run deep. It echoes. It echoes in your second guessing, in a way you hesitate to trust, in a way you flinch when someone offers love or kindness. You start building walls instead of bridges, afraid of being hurt again. But I need you to hear this, and I want you to hold onto it like a lifeline. You didn't stay broken. Yes, you were crushed, but you were never destroyed. You may have hit the ground, but you found the strength to rise. And that is what they never expected. They thought walking away would be the end of you. They never imagined it would be the beginning of your comeback. They thought breaking you would bury you, that the pain would be too much, and you'd never recover. But God had another plan. What they didn't see was that your breakdown wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of something deeper. The world may have watched you fall apart, but they weren't around to witness the breakthrough that came after. And that's okay. Let them go. Because God doesn't just work in spite of our brokenness. He works through it. He gathers every shattered piece and, with divine intention, creates something even more beautiful than before. You're no longer who you used to be, and that's the gift. That season of heartbreak, it didn't define you. It refined you. It shaped you into someone stronger, wiser, more grounded. You learned how to stand even when you felt alone. You cried, yes, but then you stood up and kept walking. And in the middle of your sorrow, you uncovered a strength that had been buried deep within you all along. Isn't it incredible? They walked away, and yet here you are, still breathing, still building, still believing in something greater. Yes, you carry scars, but scars aren't signs of weakness. They're evidence of survival, proof that you endured something meant to break you, and you came through it stronger. And now they're back. They want to talk. They see what they lost. But here's the hard truth. Just because someone finally wakes up doesn't mean you're obligated to open the door again. Some people only return because your light is shining brighter than ever, and they want to stand in its warmth. But where were they when things were dim? They didn't stay to nurture your growth. They didn't water the seed. But now that the fruit has ripened, they want to taste. That's not love. That's convenience. That's regret. Showing up late and hoping you'll forget what it cost you to heal. Don't fall for it. Don't let temporary loneliness convince you to reopen a wound that God already healed. You've come too far, dug too deep, and learned too much to go backward now. There's no returning to the place that broke you. Not out of hatred, and not because you're holding bitterness in your heart. The real reason is far more powerful. You've finally learned to love yourself enough to protect your peace. And that changes everything. When they come back after breaking you, pause and reflect. Remember who held you during your lowest moments. Remember who was there when your heart felt too heavy to carry. Remember who carried you through those dark, sleepless nights when you truly wondered if you'd make it to morning. It wasn't them. It was never them. It was God. And if he was the one who pulled you out of that pit, why would you return what he rescued you from? They may have left you shattered, but you didn't stay that way. That's the part they'll never understand. Healing doesn't mean you owe them access to the healed version of you. Healing is not an invitation. It's not a welcome mat for the very person who caused the pain. Because when someone walks away after breaking you, they forfeit the right to enjoy your restoration as if nothing happened. That healing came at a high price. It was paid with silent prayers and battles you faced alone. It came on days when getting out of bed felt like a victory. On nights when your only comfort was a whispered conversation with God. Those moments, unseen by the world, were sacred. They were part of a holy process between you and your Creator. And when you go through something like that, when God reaches into the ashes of your despair and breathes life back into your bones, you don't come out the same. You emerge transformed. You begin to value the things you once overlooked, your peace, your energy, your joy. And when someone who damaged all of that tries to return, acting like time has paused and they can just press play again, know this: you are not obligated to open the door. They may say they miss you. They may insist they've changed. But change isn't proven by words. It's revealed by fruit. And you've learned to recognize the difference. Healing doesn't mean you forget the past. It means you've learned how to grow from it. You've stopped reliving the pain and started understanding the lesson. Sometimes people come back, not out of love, but because they miss how you made them feel. They miss the comfort, the unwavering support, the way you carried them even when they didn't deserve it. But don't mistake that feeling for restoration. Nostalgia has a way of rewriting history. But healing? Healing remembers the truth. Just because someone regrets losing you doesn't mean they're ready or worthy of who you've become. Don't overlook what it took to become this version of you. You had to learn how to walk again, maybe not just emotionally or spiritually, but physically too. You had to retrain your soul to breathe without craving their validation. You had to look in the mirror and remind yourself that you are worthy, even after they treated you like you were replaceable. So when they show up again, unannounced and full of promises, don't let old emotions or misplaced guilt trick you into opening a door they never helped build. You didn't survive all that pain just to hand the keys to someone who once broke everything. That's exactly what the enemy wants, to pull you back into a space that God already brought you out of. But healing is meant to sharpen your vision. It's meant to make you wiser. Now you can see clearly what you couldn't before. That clarity allows you to distinguish between someone who is a lifeline and someone who is just a lesson. Some people were never meant to go the distance with you. They were only meant to teach you something vital. And once the lesson has been learned, you don't have to retake the class. Your healing is more than a moment of recovery. It's a rise into something greater. It's not just about moving on, it's about moving up. Elevation often comes with separation. Growth has a cost, and part of that cost is outgrowing the person you used to be. You've outgrown the version of yourself that once depended on their approval to feel worthy. You've outgrown the silence you used to sit in just to avoid conflict, just to maintain peace. And most of all, you've outgrown the part of you that tolerated being treated like you were just an option. And let's be clear, this growth didn't happen so you could shrink yourself again the moment they return. It didn't happen so you could dim your light to make them more comfortable. It happened so you could rise, so you could stand tall, shoulders back, and declare with unwavering strength, I've been through too much to go back to what broke me. That's not cruelty. That's not bitterness. That's clarity. That's protection. You're guarding something sacred now. Your heart, your peace, your purpose. And sometimes, the most powerful response isn't a loud declaration. It's silence. Sometimes, saying nothing at all speaks the loudest. Because the truth is, closure doesn't always come from a final conversation or a second chance. Sometimes, the best closure is choosing not to give someone access to the healed version of you. Let them come back. Let them realize what they lost. Let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them remember how deeply you love them. But don't confuse their return with your responsibility. You don't owe anyone a second entrance into a place they once walked away from. God didn't bring you this far just so you could entertain the past. He brought you here so you could step boldly, intentionally, into the future He has prepared for you. That healing, it was personal, it was holy. It wasn't meant to be shared with those who didn't stay to witness it. It's not a door they get to walk back through. It's a door meant for you, so you can keep walking forward without hesitation, without looking back. Healing isn't a return to what's familiar or comfortable. It's a gate to freedom. And pain, well, pain doesn't ask permission, does it? It doesn't send a warning. It just shows up, often through the faces of those you trusted most. The ones you gave your heart to. The ones you believed would never be the source of your deepest hurt. And when pain hits, it shakes you to your core. It disrupts everything. The comfort you once clung to, the routines that kept you grounded, the illusion that you had control. Suddenly, you're standing in unfamiliar territory, uncertain of who you are and unsure of where to go next. It's like the very foundation of your heart has cracked beneath your feet. But here's what you need to hold on to. Pain is not punishment. It's not evidence that God has forgotten you. It's not a sign that you failed or weren't good enough. No, it's something far more profound. Because pain, especially that deep, soul-piercing kind of pain, is often the very classroom where God teaches us our most transformative lessons. What others intended to use to break you down, God can use to build you up. The wounds they left behind, He turns them into wisdom. The suffering they caused, He uses it for shaping something stronger, something greater within you. That pain wasn't your ending, it was your awakening. You didn't just cry through that pain, you grew through it. And now, looking back, can't you feel the shift? At the time, it felt unbearable. It felt like punishment. But over time, you began to change. You prayed differently, more honestly, more deeply. You moved differently, with greater purpose and discernment. You stopped seeing people only for who you wanted them to be and started recognizing them for who they really were. You stopped chasing validation and started listening to your own spirit. That pain gave birth to clarity. It brought forth a strength you didn't even know you had. It pulled things out of you that comfort never could. Because pain, especially the kind caused by betrayal, abandonment, or rejection, does more than hurt. It reveals. It shines a light on where you were dependent, on patterns that weren't serving you, and blind spots you didn't know were there. And most importantly, it uncovers a deeper need for God. One you may have never recognized until everything else was stripped away. Because it's in that raw, unfiltered pain, when you're on the floor, empty, with nothing left to give, that something shifts. That's the moment you stop reaching for people who never truly saw you, and you start reaching for Him. You stop trying to patch up the damage with your own strength. Instead, you whisper the words, "Lord, I can't carry this." And that is where real healing begins. Not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Quietly, powerfully, deeply. And the truth is, the same people who caused the pain, they weren't there for the transformation. They didn't stay in the darkness with you. They didn't hear the broken prayers or feel the weight of your breath as you learned to breathe again, one desperate moment at a time. They saw the breakdown, but they weren't there for the breakthrough. And that matters more than you may think, especially when they try to return. Because some people want to enjoy the version of you that pain helped refine. But they didn't stick around to witness the process that produced it. They didn't see the cost. They don't understand the nights you cried alone, the days when getting out of bed felt impossible, or the moments when anxiety gripped you like a shadow. So don't let them minimize your growth. Don't let them walk back in as if they're entitled to the peace you had to fight for. God used that pain. Every tear, every sleepless night, every anxious thought that kept you up, and every moment when you felt invisible or unworthy. He saw it all. And He wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you, not to bring you back to what you lost, but to lead you into something far greater. Something you weren't ready for until the pain shaped you. And sometimes it wasn't even about them. Sometimes it was about you outgrowing the space you were in, about God shaking you loose from people, places, and patterns that couldn't go where He was leading you. Yes, it hurt. Yes, it felt unfair. But that pain had a purpose. It woke you up. It stretched you. It taught you to rise. It helped you stop begging for love and start recognizing the worth that was always inside you. That pain you went through, it didn't just hurt. It separated you from what was slowly destroying your spirit, even if your heart wasn't quite ready to let go. Sometimes the heart clings to things long after the soul has outgrown them. But now you've gained something deeper. You've got perspective that only distance can give. You've got wisdom carved out by fire. You've got discernment that didn't come easy, but came through every tear, every lesson, every silent night. So don't be ashamed of your pain. Don't try to hide it or minimize it. And whatever you do, don't forget what it taught you. Carry those lessons with you, not like baggage, but like armor. Let them strengthen your decisions. Let them shape your boundaries. Let them empower your voice. Because pain was never meant to paralyze you. It wasn't sent to punish you. Pain was a teacher, one of the hardest, but one of the most effective. When someone breaks you and walks away, it's easy to sink into that space of self-doubt. You find yourself sitting alone wondering, what was wrong with me? It's a human reaction. You replay conversations. You scan memories for clues. You start blaming yourself for their choices, carrying guilt that was never yours to hold. But here's the truth. Sometimes people leave not because you were lacking, but because they were. Sometimes it's not your brokenness that pushed them away. It's their own fear, their own dysfunction, their own wounds they never healed. And you only begin to understand that after the chaos settles, after you've walked through the wilderness of your healing. That's when a powerful realization hits you. You never needed them to be whole. There's this lie the world tells, that your worth is tied to who stays. That if someone wants you, you must be worthy. But that's not truth. The real truth, when someone walks away, it doesn't reduce your value. It doesn't diminish your identity. Because your identity was never built on another person's ability to love you. It was built on the one who created you, the one who never left. And as healing begins, as God starts putting the broken pieces of your heart back together, you begin to see it. You discover something sacred. You realize the strength you were looking for in them. It was inside of you all along. You just didn't recognize it yet. You spent so much time holding everything together, trying to fix what they shattered, try to become exactly what they needed, while forgetting one crucial truth. You were never called to carry someone else's emotional chaos. You weren't created to be someone's savior. You weren't meant to carry their wounds, solve their chaos, or absorb their blame. That was never your role. You were made to be whole. And the beautiful thing about healing is that it teaches you this. Your wholeness was never dependent on someone choosing you. It was never tied to their presence. Your wholeness comes from learning to choose yourself, the way God has already chosen you. Because when you rise from brokenness, something profound shifts. You begin to see clearly that being alone doesn't mean being empty. It means being free. Free from manipulation. Free from confusion. Free from constantly shrinking yourself to meet someone else's comfort level. Free from living in that cycle of always feeling like you're too much, yet never quite enough. And one day it hits you. You were never the problem. You were simply trying to live out a story that was never written for you. You were carrying a kind of love that was never meant to be carried alone. But now that you've healed, you walk differently. You don't chase closure anymore. You don't beg for understanding. You don't explain your peace. You protect it. That's the shift. That's the moment everything changes. And when they come back, and they often do, they're met with someone they no longer recognize. They're looking for the version of you they left behind. The one who used to bend until you broke, who used to beg for scraps of love, who used to silence your needs to keep the peace. But that person no longer exists. Now you stand firm. Now your words carry weight. Your spirit doesn't shake just because someone walks out of the room. You've built something steady inside yourself, and that unsettles them. Not because you've grown cold, but because you've finally embraced the strength that was buried deep within you all along. Strange, isn't it? The very people who walked away are often the first to return when they see you rise. But here's what they don't understand, what they never saw. This version of you wasn't built with their help. It wasn't shaped by their love, their support, or their presence. It was built in the silence. In the dark, in those long nights when you cried into your pillow and prayed for the strength to hold on. It was built in the quiet mornings when your heart begged you to stay down, but you stood up anyway. This version of you, it was forged in fire. And you don't hand that kind of healing The kind you bled for, prayed for, and grew through, back to the very hands that once broke you. So when they come back, don't slip into nostalgia. Don't get pulled into old memories dressed as new intentions. Don't lose the ground you fought so hard to reclaim. Remember what it cost you to heal. Remember the silent battles, the nights you couldn't sleep, and the mornings you forced yourself to smile again. You don't need them to feel whole. You never did. They were never the missing piece. They were just the noise that distracted you from what God already saw in you. That you are enough. That you're already complete. That the strength you were looking for outside was always inside. Sometimes, it takes being broken to finally realize you've been whole all along. And then, the storm settles. But not because everything returned to the way it was. No, there's peace not in the restoration of the past, but in accepting that it's never going to be the same. And that realization, that peace, it doesn't come cheap. It's earned. After heartbreak, after confusion, after long nights filled with questions that may never be answered. Yet somehow, in the middle of it all, God begins to speak. Not always about them, but about you. You gain clarity. Not just about the situation, but about your own heart, your boundaries, your worth. And you begin to understand a hard truth. Not everyone who breaks you deserves another chance to do it again. Not every "I miss you" deserves a reply. Not every return should be mistaken for redemption. If you're not careful, what God healed you from can return, wearing a new face, a new tone, but carrying the same old damage. That's why discernment matters. That's why wisdom isn't just a virtue, it's protection. Because when God brings you through something, it's never so you can go back to it. It's so you learn never to settle for it again. There's something about time, about distance. They give you vision. You start to see what you couldn't see before. You start to admit what you once denied. You realize how much of yourself you gave, how deeply you poured, and how little was ever poured back into you. You see how often you explained your worth, when what you really needed was to experience it. And when the light finally turns on, when clarity replaces confusion, it's not bitterness speaking. It's revelation. It's the grace of God gently opening your eyes to a truth you once ignored out of loyalty. You see, sometimes people don't come back because they love you. They come back because they've realized they lost something rare, something real, something they never truly valued until it was gone. And when they see you rising, when they notice the peace in your stride and the purpose in your steps, they believe they can return. They think they can walk back into your life like it's still theirs to enter. But peace? Peace is not a playground. It's not open for casual visits. It's sacred ground, hard-won and deeply protected. And you, now healed, have every right to guard it. Because when healing takes root in your life, your energy becomes sacred too. You begin to see it differently. You stop giving it away to people who drain you. You stop apologizing for choosing clarity over confusion. You no longer carry guilt for walking away from those who once brought nothing but chaos. You begin to understand something freeing. Not every relationship was meant to be repaired. Some weren't meant to be held onto. They were meant to be released. And that release wasn't a rejection. It was a divine redirection. Because God doesn't remove anything from your life without purpose. Sometimes, He allows the breaking not to harm you, but to reshape you, to rebuild you stronger, more grounded, and more aligned with Him. And when God rebuilds you, He doesn't use broken pieces from the past. He lays down new foundations. He gives you deeper discernment. He equips you with patience, resilience, and inner peace. And He expects you to protect what He's restored. That's why, when someone who once walked away tries to return, you don't just swing the door wide open because they knocked. You pause. You pray. You discern. You ask yourself hard questions. Not, do they miss me? But is this peace, or is this pain wearing a new disguise? Because peace is more than the absence of conflict. It's the presence of God, of wisdom, of stillness in your soul. And not everyone should have access to it. It's the presence of God's order. It's alignment. It's that rare stillness within your spirit. The kind that doesn't come easily, but comes through surrender, growth, and relentless grace. And when you fought through storms to find that kind of stillness, you don't let just anyone walk back into it. You protect it because you understand its worth now. You've outgrown the cycle, the drama, the exhausting need to explain your heart to people who never truly honored it in the first place. You've outgrown shrinking yourself to fit into rooms that were never meant to hold the healed, whole version of you. And that's not pride. That's wisdom. It's okay to love someone and still choose not to let them back in. It's okay to forgive fully and freely, and yet not rebuild the same relationship. Not every door is closed out of anger. Some are closed out of clarity, out of growth, out of reverence for what God has done within you. You're not being unkind. You're being healed. And healed people guard what they've rebuilt with trembling hands and steady hearts. You're protecting something sacred now, something that took everything in you to rise from. You're walking in a peace that never came from their approval or their presence. It came from God. And when God gives you peace, you don't trade it. Not for comfort, not for closure, and certainly not for another round of what once broke you. So protect your peace like it's a promise, because it is. A promise between you and God. A covenant between who you were and who you're becoming. Wishing you strength, healing, and unwavering peace. Stay encouraged, stay grounded, and don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more messages just like this. May you be blessed with health, happiness, and the wisdom to keep walking forward.